This is a quick tutorial on how to create a book cover for the Espresso Book Machine. In this tutorial, we'll be using a cover calculator, and we'll also be using Adobe Photoshop to create our cover template. So first things first, we need to actually access the cover calculator. To do this, we're going to go to the following URL. It is tinyurl.com/covercalc, COVERCALC. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use this calculator to determine the size of our cover document, as well as the spine, the trim, and the safe area guides. So how we're going to do this is we're actually going to put in our book width and height in inches, and also the number of pages. So I will say that the cover is usually the last thing you do, because you need to know how many pages you have in order to use this calculator in order to determine the document size. And also too, you will count pages front and back. So you won't count single sheets within the book. You're going to count a page front and back. So you'll have 2 pages, so make sure that you count those accordingly. Alright, so for our example, we're actually going to do a book size that is 6 inches wide by 9 inches tall, and we're going to give it 100 pages. So we're just going to input those into the forms, and we're going to come down here and click on calculate, and that's going to magically calculate all of the values that we need. So now what we need to do is we need to use these values and put them inside Photoshop. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to switch over to Photoshop. And here we're going to create a new document by going up to File and New. That's going to bring up our new document dialog box. We're going to rename this Cover Template. And then we're going to jump down to the width and height. And here we're going to use those document size values that the cover calculator provided for us. So looking at those values, I see that my cover width is meant to be 12.475 inches. So I'll input that. If you don't have inches selected as your menu, just go ahead and select that from these little menus just to the right of those values. I'm going to jump down to my height now, and my calculator gave me a height of 9.25 inches, and then I see that my resolution is set to 300, which is exactly what I need. And one thing I'll note is if your color mode is not already set to CMYK, I'd recommend setting it to that, because that is the color space that the Espresso Book Machine will be using when it prints your books. Alright, so we have everything set that we need, so we can go ahead and hit OK, and that's going to create our cover template document. So from here, what we need to do is we actually need to add some of the other guides. So the first set of guides we're going to look at are the spine guides. So I'm going to pull up those values from the cover calculator, and I see that my spine is going to be about 0.225 inches wide, which, if you can imagine, is not a very wide spine. So I'd actually recommend, if your spine is lower than ½ an inch, you might consider not putting any text or special imagery on there, just because it's so small it may be hard to see. And also too, there is the slight possibility for shifting when these get printed and trimmed, and I'd hate for it to shift and have your spine content on, say, your front or back cover. So again, if you notice you have a really small spine value, you may not put any valuable visual information on that spine. Alright, so with that said, let's look at those other 2 spine values for the left and right guides, and let's show you how you can add some guides to Photoshop. So first things first, I want us to go up to View, and if you don't already have your rulers shown, it's actually really good to show your rulers. So I'd actually go up to View and Rulers to show off those rulers. And then if we go on down, we're going to go down to View a New Guide to actually create our first new guide. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. It's going to bring up this New Guide dialog box. You can actually move this to wherever you'd like. So I'm going to stick mine in the middle here. So my first guide I see is a left guide, and I see it's 6.124 inches. And since this is going to be a left guide, I can imagine that this is going to go vertically. So I'm going to make sure that vertical is selected and just hit OK. And that's going to give me then my first guide. So now let's go back up to View. We're going to do New Guide, and then this time we're going to do that second value for the right, which is 6.35. Again, vertical, and hit OK. And you'll see that now in between these 2 lines is going to be where our spine content will live. So again, very small spine in this example. Alright, so the next thing that we want to look at are our trim guides. So we're going to go ahead and add these, and these are going to show what parts of the document are actually going to get cut off. So how this works is that we're going to print out your cover on a big sheet of paper, and then we're going to trim it down to the actual size. So it's important that we have these trim marks. So again, we're going to go up to View. we're going to go to New Guide, and here we see that our top guide is 0.125 inches. However, since this is going to be on the top, this is probably going to go horizontally, so I'm going to change that radio button, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to see my first top guide, and we're going to do that again now for the bottom, and then for this value, I see that this is 9.125, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, keep it horizontal, hit OK, and then now let's do the left and right. So if these are left and right, they're going to be vertical. So we're going to switch that radio button. For our left guide, it's 0.125. Go ahead and input that. And finally, our right guide for this. And that value is 12.350. Awesome. So we already have our spine and we have our trim guides. So the last part that we need to do is our safe area. We need to kind of build guides for our buffer zone so that we know where to put content when we're designing our covers. So this is going to be us looking at the safe area guides now. So I'm going to pull that up from our Espresso Book Machine calculator. So again, we're going to go through this process one more time. We're going to go up to View, New Guide. This time we're starting with the top again. So we're going to select horizontal, those radio buttons. We're going to do 0.375. Hit OK. Go up to View, New Guide. We're going to do the bottom. This is 8.875. View, New Guide. Make sure you change that radio button to vertical because now we're switching to the left and right guides. Left guide is 0.375. And our final guide will be View, New Guide, and now it's that right guide, that 12.100. All right, so we actually have an official template, and at this point I would actually recommend you to go ahead and do a file save so you can save your template to your desktop, to your documents, just so you have this for later. All right, so let's break down what these different sections are and what these guides mean that we just made. So first things first, your very, very outer set of guides, those are going to be your trim lines. It's telling you where the page edge is actually going to get cut. So you don't want anything on the outside of that guide other than any colors you might want to bleed to the edge of your cover, or any background images that you might have that you also want to bleed to that edge. So again, anything in here is going to be trimmed off. So this next set of guides is actually showing this next little sliver, which is sort of like your trim area. So this is sort of like a margin where you wouldn't want to put any important graphics or text because it is at a slight risk of being trimmed if there is any shifting when we're trimming your cover. So again, don't put any text imagery in here unless it is like a background image, background color that you want to be to the edge of the page. All right, so then finally, we have these sort of inner areas, which is our safe space. And this is where you can put any text, any graphics, any important visual elements. So over here is going to be our front cover. Over here is going to be our back cover. And in the middle, our little line here is going to be our spine, as we talked about earlier. So I jumped ahead and just designed a mock cover just so you can get an idea of what a finished product would look like. So if we take a look at this, we see that this is obviously our front cover featuring our main graphics and our book's title, our back cover featuring our author image and perhaps an author bio. If our spine was large enough, we may have had some text within the spine, but our spine wasn't very large in this example, so we don't have any in this. Big things to point out is I actually made my image bleed to the very edge of the document. So if you look in my bleed area and my trim area, you can see that I have my graphic bleeding all the way to that very edge, but I don't have any important text or any important imagery within that area. And you can tell that everything is within that inner set of guides in my document. So at this point I would be finished, and if you're at this point, how you would save this for the Espresso Book Machine folks to print it is you would go up to File, go down to Save As, and from your format list, you're going to select Photoshop PDF. And go ahead and hit Save. If you have any pop-ups, hit OK. And then from here, the big thing that you need to do is at the very top where it says Adobe PDF Preset, I want you to click on that menu, and I want you to select a PDF X1A 2001. And this is going to be the appropriate PDF for the Espresso Book Machine. And if you need help using the cover calculator or formatting your cover using Photoshop, please check out the Espresso Book Machine's research guide at guides.lib.umich.edu/EBM, or contact the Knowledge Navigation Center for an appointment by emailing knc-info@umich.edu.